Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Geeky Gentleman, the podcast for all your geeky needs, fashion, and lifestyle tips, all rolled up into one perfectly packaged podcast. Today is a very special episode because we are welcoming back Terry Blas, writer of Marvel Comics Reptile, and today we will be discussing all things Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Be ready because we have lots of spoilers and lots of Scarlet Witch. So let's jump right into the podcast. First off, want to welcome back Terry Blas, writer and artist for Marvel's Reptile and Marvel's Voices. How are you, Mr. Terry?
Hi, I'm great. I'm glad to be with you again.
So obviously you guys weren't privy to our conversations. We just had a really nice 10 to 15 minute catch up while avoiding talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness because that is what this podcast episode is about. But I know we really want to get into it, and I personally want to hear Terry's opinions and thoughts on it because all the friends who I've talked to here in London about the film aren't necessarily well-versed in, Marvel Comics lore. So they're just seeing it from a perspective of all I know is the MCU. So I'm really interested to see as your opinion in terms of someone who's written for the comics, knows his Marvel shit. I can say it's my podcast. And then also, just enjoys good films in general.
That's nice. Thanks. I mean, I've read my fair share of Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, America Chavez stuff. So I think we're good.
Well, first off, let's start with America Chavez. We have our first Latina superhero, yes?
I believe so. I think so. So this is something that I think we should clarify because when I say that, people are like, what about Zoe? What about Salma? I'm like, they played aliens. they're not from Mexico or even America Chavez is from, I'm not sure. I don't think they said it in the movie, but her world is supposed to be called the Utopian Parallel.
Yes, this is true.
And so I'm like, cool. Is there a Puerto Rico there? Is there a Mexico there?
Are you another alien? Do we have just another alien?
But she's speaking Spanish.
She is.
She even asks, Wong, she's like, this guy doesn't speak Spanish over here? What? Okay, that's weird. So I'm just going to say she's Latina.
We're going to run with it. I mean, if your first line is in Spanish, we'll give you Latina.
That's a very interesting thing I've read on the internet is that a lot of people in Mexico, I assume other countries too, but a lot of people in Mexico who've gone to see the movie go in, and because the first lines in the movie are hers and are in Spanish, they're confused and they think they've purchased a ticket to the Spanish dub of the movie. And they don't know what to do. They're like, wait a minute, but I wanted the English with the Spanish subtitles. And so they've been very confused. And I think that's kind of funny because the first lines being in Spanish is kind of revolutionary too. That's really interesting.
I mean, even I was thrown off by it. When I saw that, I was like, wait, what's going on? Even knowing everything about America Chavez already, I was like, but why? What's happening? Where am I? Multiverse.
Totally. Exactly. That's the instant feeling they want us to have. Is oh.
Yeah.
Where are we?
It's a bit unsettling. So creatively smart.
Great.
I'll accept it.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a lot to say about America.
What did you think? Because I'll start on this one because out of all the other characters, I think my opinion on hers is still TBD. Solely because she's a new character. Most of what I know from her is just her comic book lore already. Nothing. The movie didn't really give me any other information that I didn't know already. But I do feel it was something left to be desired. But that's okay because I know what they're trying to do and they're trying to set up the Young Avengers. So as a person who's a big fan of the Scarlet Witch anyways, I didn't want... Everyone else, I'm like, why are you hogging Wanda's screen time?
That's sort of how I felt too.
So what I got from her was enough. I'm totally gonna butcher her name, but I'm gonna try. Is it just Shoti Gomez? Is that how you pronounce it?
So that was actually supposed to be my name if I had been born a girl.
Is it really?
So it's Xochitl, which is an Aztec word for flower.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, Xochitl Gomez.
I mean, whenever you see a name that starts with an X, I'm thrown off. Unless it's Xavier, I got nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I totally get what you're saying because I feel like it's while it leaves something to be desired, I feel like we have to start somewhere, right? People who watched all the MCU movies, when they introduced Wanda, I think were like, wait a minute, this isn't the Scarlet Witch. This isn't who I know. Why is she dressed like Avril Lavigne? You know what I mean? So that character arc has to go somewhere. So I feel like it has to start in a place where if she's all powerful, if she's can already do all these amazing things and can control her power, then there isn't much of a place for her to go within these movies. And so I think that's what people are maybe feeling or seeing. And so I'm okay with it because I know that, well, I don't know, but I would hope that we're going to get, more of her and that we'll see more in like potentially a Young Avengers movie. Maybe she would get her own series. She was supposed to be in Spider-Man, the most recent Spider-Man movie.
I heard that.
Yeah. And I think that when they kind of altered some of that, I mean, there's the other Spider-Man coming to this universe. So I think she was going to be the way that happened. But I think she works well in this Doctor Strange movie. I liked her character, but I think that my only issue, how do I say this? My only issue is that in the comics, she is Afro-Latina, and in the most recent series, she's Puerto Rican. She's like, that's kind of been established. Mm-hmm. And to have her, like, I'm not going to say a Mexican actress can't play a Puerto Rican. Like, I'm not going to go there. But when her jacket has, like, a Day of the Dead skull on it, and, like, to me, it's this, like, idea, not even an idea. I feel like people just didn't put that much, maybe, thought into the fact that, like, nationalities between Latinos aren't interchangeable. It'd be like if you made a movie about, like, a Chinese superhero and he's wearing a Japanese flag pin or something. Like, what? But yeah, I think it's fine. I like the actress. I like the character. I was so angry because the one time I got up to use the bathroom was the time that apparently it showed her mom's.
No, you missed the two moms.
Yes, I was so mad, but whatever. It's not like I won't see it again, so.
Yeah. I mean that scene when she opens the portals and the moms get sucked through and then she gets sucked through, you're just kind of like, oh, no wonder you have issues.
I like the idea that when she said that in all the other multiverses that she's been to, 70-something or whatever, that she's never found another version of herself. And I think that is tied to this underlying theme, which I'm sure we'll get to, of the idea of like you are the only one that's you. Even if you find another version of you, they haven't had your memories, your experiences. That's not you. It's like it may look like you, but you're the only person that is you. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way to drive that theme home with her character. But yeah, and I thought her powers were fun, and yeah, I liked her. I thought she was cool.
I agree. I think her introduction to the film was well thought out. I think she fit in the plot, and the whole, her being able to open portals in the multiverse, which is, her power set, worked really well for this film. I liked how they did it. It could have easily looked very cheesy because it's like, they're star-shaped, but the way they kind of like made it look was still kind of like a bit menacing. You're just like, it's like a portal. It's actually kind of like threatening. It's not just like, a pretty star, let me walk right through. More representation at MCU. I think good introduction. I didn't need to see anything more on screen than what I already saw. Well, I think one of the things that I would say in terms of character arcs that I found slightly disappointing was Wong. Only because I do think he's underutilized. So I like Benedict Wong, who plays Wong. I think he's a great actor. I like the character of Wong. So in the first Doctor Strange, I could understand, maybe, not showcasing him so much. He's currently Sorcerer Supreme. I feel that has to mean something besides just a title. I don't think you're just a Sorcerer Supreme and it's just a title. I think there has to be kind of like a power that comes with that, or like the knowledge of those Sorcerer Supreme books that you're only privy to. So I feel he was kind of underutilized in that aspect in terms of actually showcasing any kind of, I guess, power upgrade that would become by being associated as Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah, if I'm Sorcerer Supreme, I'm not hanging on a cliff for half an hour.
Exactly. I'm sorry. Yeah, my only way out is not a little energy rope that and it didn't even like hook.
Half an hour ago, you had dragons shooting out of your hands, and you can't make a ladder. Like I don't get it. But I agree with you. I think at this point, he's been in about 6 Marvel movies, and so I would love to see kind of like a supercut of his character's progression in all these movies, and see maybe then I would see a little bit more about like his journey and what he's progressed to. But yeah, I think that who knows? I'm curious about like what was maybe cut out of the movie. Like I guess that could provide some insight. But yeah, I think his character is good. I think that actor's good. But I think that there could have been like a little extra kind of nugget of like, no, but I'm the Sorcerer Supreme. It makes me wonder a little bit as to whether or not they did that because of the whole Tilda controversy. And so they're like, no, this Asian man is the Sorcerer Supreme. Which is okay. I think that's great. But then give him, I think, a little bit more to do in terms of some of the magic stuff. I think the problem is that they're like, but this is a Doctor Strange movie. So they don't want him to be outshadowed, I guess. But I think you can still do that in a Doctor Strange movie, like with the presence of, I'm sure we'll get there, but like this Illuminati and Professor X, like there are people that are obviously more powerful than him, but they don't take up like the whole movie. They do some cool stuff. So yeah, the one thing I did notice, this is so dumb, but Wong's hair changes length throughout the movie, so there's like a little bit of a continuity issue there.
I wasn't sure if I was noticing that or not. I noticed that the second time I watched the film, because of course the first time I'm like, so much is happening, I can't even process it. And then the second time, when you start to like notice those things, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. I'm just gonna chalk that up to like when he uses magic, his hair grows a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
something.
Obviously, Mordo. Mordo was popped into the film and basically as one of the members of the Illuminati. He's also one of those characters that I like, Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Oh, me too.
I like the character of Mordo. I'm not so bothered that he wasn't so much predominantly in this film because obviously, we have the Scarlet Witch, doing her stuff. So I'm not so fussed with how much he appeared in the film. At the same time, though, the part that he wasn't, like, these are sorcerers. Again, like, all you had was, like, an energy sword. That was, like, the one thing that you kind of, like, did. And then you were easily handcuffed real quick, and then nothing else.
This is my problem. People are going to come for me. This is my problem with Star Wars, is that I don't understand the need for, like, a light sword when you can choke people with the Force.
Yeah, don't come at me, people.
Because it looks cool? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like... have something. Yeah. Like I don't understand.
I would have rather seen a cool magic fight than like a sword fight, I guess. But yeah.
And once again, your Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
That was your one go. Ooh, energy sword. Oh, now that's gone.
Right.
Oh, so that was a little disappointing. I'm saving Scarlet Witch for the end, everyone, just because she deserves all the love and praise. So we'll come. So she's coming.
Because we'll talk probably a lot about her.
Yeah. All right. Doctor Strange. So, I'll let you start off with Doctor Strange. What did you think?
I thought it was an interesting progression of his character. He is this character that's sort of like, I think kind of, I don't know the best word, grumpy? Or like, and America, I think, is a nice foil for him in this movie where she's like, okay, whatever, dude. Like, all right. So I think that's fun, but it also gives him a character to then care about and grow towards, whereas like I think Spider-Man just kind of like bugs the shit out of him. Like America, at least he feels some sort of affection for towards the end, and I think that it's interesting that his character has this storyline of one of his, I guess, do we call them variants, in the beginning tries to, I mean obviously this whole episode comes with a spoiler warning, but his character tries to kill America. And that's why she doesn't trust him. And so I think that he has to that establishes the need for him, story-wise, to prove to her that he's not like the other variants of himself that she's met. And I think that that's great because she is sort of, she's alone in this kind of journey, I think, except for at the beginning. And so I like that it sort of is what endears the two of them together. I don't know. I don't feel like his magic progressed to some sort of like new Pokemon evolution level, but I think it was still cool. It was, I guess, good enough. But yeah, I don't know. I liked his character. The stuff with him, is her name Christine?
Christine, yeah.
I thought that was interesting that like maybe his Christine is not someone he is supposed to end up with, but a variant of her from another world could, like, this other variant of her really helps him out and kind of trusts him a little bit. So, and she has to learn that he's not the same person. So I like that maybe that could have been explored a little bit more, is the idea of like, oh, but you're not the one I knew. You're a different person, but maybe we could end up together. I wonder if she'll show up more, because she is, now that they're doing all this multiverse stuff, they establish her as like the scientist who knows the most about it.
Mm-hmm. She's
She's
naming all the multiverses now.
Yeah. I love that they mentioned 616.
Oh, I totally uttered that in the cinema when I saw the first
Yeah.
night, and I was like, right before she said, I was like, 616. Mm-hmm. For me, Doctor Strange, I like Benedict Cumberbatch. I go back and forth because sometimes I feel it's like he hasn't learned anything in terms of doing spells with consequences. Obviously, he always started off as this like kind of like arrogant magic version of Tony Stark. Like, they're very similar in the comic books anyways in terms of personas. They have this like arrogance. They know all, they know best. So that worked very well in the first one. I'm the best surgeon, etc. And then you have Infinity War, and he does, this whole looks in the time stone, everyone dies for 5 years, it's the only way. That, of course, carries its own emotional baggage. Then you have No Way Home, and then he casts like a spell for like a teenager, which, of course, help Peter Parker, it's Tom Holland. But at the same time, it's like, it feels like you're just so callously doing this, even with like Wong over there telling you, don't do it. There's like ramifications, but you don't care. You do it anyways. So I feel like, how are you still doing this? Like, how have you not learned? Are you still like are you not going to be arrogant until the very, very end? Like, when are you going to become wiser Doctor Strange? So I have that aspect of his personality I kind of go back and forth on. I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Right.
His stuff with Christine, I do like that he kind of had that confession with the, I can't remember, was it Earth 813?
I think it was 838, maybe?
838,
Sure.
yeah. The one not
Yeah.
616 version. But, at the end, he basically kind of has this, like, disclosure of his love for her at the end of the film. And I feel like it's kind of like, yes, you've got that out of your system. You can kind of, like, move on because, hey, Clay is here. And, spoiler warnings for those people who don't know, they get together. Woo!
And sometimes in the comics, she's the Sorcerer Supreme. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of good stuff to see with Clea's introduction now. In terms of his magic, I do agree. Like, he did the whole dragons or snakes coming out of his arms, and that looked cool. I will always harp on whenever there's a show, anything with, like, fantasy and magic and powers. I always feel most people do not know how to showcase this properly in terms of, like, a battle. I do think there are cool moments between him when he's fighting the Scarlet Witch at the very beginning, but I feel everything when it comes to a one-on-one battle in terms of magic and spells, it's always cut short. It's always, there's like, I feel it could go back and forth much longer. Like when he fought Thanos, like that fight on Titan.
Oh, yeah.
I loved. I wish it was longer, but like it was like mirror dimension, boom, power stone, bow, and like all this
Yeah.
other cool stuff. And I was like, what is my brain seeing right now?
There's a little bit of that in the Spider-Man movie, too, with the train and that, like, mirror dimension thing. Like, that's a cool kind of battle.
Like, exactly.
Yeah.
I wanted to see, like, we have Scarlet Witch. She is, like, stronger than ever, going against, like, not Sorcerer Supreme Wong, but, like, Doctor Strange, who should be very good at wielding magic. And I just really wanted to see something longer, something. Obviously, she can easily take out all these other sorcerers' apprentices, but I really would want to see that Doctor Strange is obviously much stronger than them and can at least hold her off with some spells or magics versus like trapping her into this little magic trap, which kind of looked like it was like some sort of mirror dimension before she's like, whoo, reflections and let me get creepy.
I would have. I think you're right. I would have loved that, to see like that the fight they have towards the beginning, to have him sort of like hold her off while some of them like, he's doing that so they can escape, so they can get to safety and whatnot. But they didn't really do that, did they?
This will go under like when we talk about missed opportunities. Like that is what I would have liked to see. But like I said, I love Benedict Cumberbatch. I think he's doing a very good Doctor Strange.
Do you think that maybe they didn't do that because it would have shown too much of like a selflessness too early for him, as like, because that would have endeared me to his character in terms of like, oh, he's doing this to save all these people, to care about them. Not that he hasn't done that before, but I think maybe for this movie, he has to grow and care for like one person first, which would be America, and I don't know, maybe.
Yes, but then I needed to see that at the end.
Yeah.
I needed to see that at the end, and how glorious would that have been?
I agree.
But then let's go to our favorite girl, Scarlet Witch. All right,
Right.
so I might be biased. I probably 100% biased. I love Scarlet Witch. Since the comic books, cartoons, Elizabeth Olsen has been selling me. I've bought the Kool-Aid. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Like, she has me, even from the get-go. She has done such a good job with this character and the character development. A lot of people are giving her transition to full-on villain, they're kind of feeling like it's rushed. When I saw the movie the first time around, I was like, I can see why people think that. Seeing it the second time around, I'm much more understanding, but I still would have done certain things differently to help audiences understand this full-on transition for her being batshit, Khaleesi, I'm about to burn you with a dragon evil.
Yeah.
Because they completely say, the Darkhold corrupts everyone. And we do know at the end of WandaVision, you see her with the Darkhold. And I don't think people just were ready that it was going to corrupt her so much. Because I also don't think the Darkhold was explicitly said in WandaVision. There's this corrupting nature to it. They mention it once or twice in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
And I think for most people, if you had seen that visually, if that had been conveyed in some way visually versus just quick exposition, I think people would have bought into why she's evil now. Or if you had seen in the film that she was actively fighting off the corruption and the influence of the Darkhold, I think audiences would have believed it much more. Because when I watched it the first time, I was like, but why is she evil? After WandaVision, you thought she had kind of like come to peace with things. But then, if the president is the Darkhold corrupts you, that makes sense then. She has the Darkhold. She's been studying it. They don't necessarily tell you what's the time from end of WandaVision to the beginning of Doctor Strange, I don't think. So we don't know how long she's been having it. So how long has this Darkhold, been poisoning her?
I read somewhere that it was about a year. And so,
okay, I mean, a year of reading the Book of the Damned.
And so that's I totally agree with what you're saying, because I feel like it's not like we needed a long scene, a few lines of dialogue and then a couple images of maybe seeing what the book does to her over the course of the, that could just be when she's explaining to Stephen what happened. He sees through the hex or whatever, and all the whole thing around her turns red. She could be explaining, I guess, kind of what happened. And then I think we would have gone along believing her sort of villainy a little bit more, because then we wouldn't have really felt like it's not coming from an evil place.
Yeah. She's not evil. Scarlet Witch is not evil. It's the corruption of the Darkhold.
I think any good villain doesn't believe they're evil. They have a moral code that they're sticking to, that they believe what they're doing is right. And that's what makes them scary. So I like that idea, and I think that you're right. We could have maybe just had a line or two and maybe shown a little bit of what the book does to her, which in turn, I think, would have made Stephen using it more of a moment. But we don't want him to become corrupted, and it would have made his journey more difficult. So that could have been really cool.
One of the things that I think would have been great to see is when Professor Xavier goes into her mind, that you
totally
would have saw something there that's visually showing, the Darkhold's influence on her and her perception of things.
That would have been a perfect place.
Right? Quick, visual, it's there. It's the astral dimension.
Yeah, it's in her mind, so he could see it, and then we would see that it's something she didn't even need to tell Stephen. That could be the moment where we see what it's done to her, and he could, because he could then also see Wanda, our Wanda, and then this variant Wanda, and feel the need to help them both.
Exactly.
But then isn't able to.
See?
Yeah.
Marvel, you need to talk to us before you release movies. That's what you need to be doing. But with that said, I believed Elizabeth Olsen this entire way through this film. If it was not for her acting, even when she goes and she has that exchange at Kamatage with Doctor Strange before she rains havoc, she is so good. There's this part where when they're shooting it, it's kind of, they're looking, the shots of Wanda and Steven are at angles, but then at one point towards the end, before she starts to go at him, it shifts and she looks straight at the camera, and the exchange is her looking directly at the camera, which is looking at Steven, and I just felt it. I was like, ooh, I felt that shift. And you can consistently always see that she's working at so many layers. Like, she's not just being evil and vindictive. You can see, like, in her eyes, the emotion, like, the strain and, like, the conflict all the way through the film. She sells it. She sells it.
Yeah, she's really great. I think that there's a moment at the kind of climax of the movie, which I'm sure we'll get to, where the kids are like begging her not to hurt them, and all of her villainy sort of drains, and she's like, but I would never do that. But the proof is that, like, well, but you just hurt their mom. And so I think that's the moment where she kind of realizes what she's doing, but it's almost like too late. But I believed her throughout the movie. My whole point was, like, I know she's the villain, but every time she was doing something, I was like, we are trying to get Wiccan and Hulkling in the MCU. Yes, work, do it. Kill everyone. Like,
do what you need to do, Wanda. Do what you need to do.
Yeah.
I know Young Avengers is coming, and I am still missing 2 key members.
So I really thought that ever since the final, shot of, I guess, was it WandaVision? Was that where she's like with the Darkhold and like floating and whatever?
Yes, and so she hears them.
I thought ever since then that, like, the next time we would see them, she would find variants of her kids that were, like, a little bit older so that they could bring that into the MCU. But I wonder if by the time they get to Young Avengers, those kids will be 16 anyway.
But what I'm envisioning, 100% she needs her own solo film. Marvel, you're taking too long. Announce it.
Yeah.
I would want a trilogy at least, but, I'll take what I can get. But I think she has so much more story to tell. Children's Crusade, it's coming. I think she's gonna pop up in Latveria. You can introduce Doctor Doom, come up with president for all of this. And somehow already the twins have been reincarnated in our universe, which happens in the comic books anyways, and they're already older. Now, whether that's these kid actors just grown up already when it comes out, who knows? But I think they're going that way.
Yeah.
They're going that way.
Yeah, I think it would be a very good decision to incorporate her into the Young Avengers Children's Crusade stuff if they do that.
That is a Young Avengers film. But it shouldn't be a Young Avengers film. I wanted it to still be Scarlet Witch. Like, give her... I need this film to be about Scarlet Witch, because the last thing I'll say about her kind of, like, character art is they set it up so much that there was going to be this whole, in the Darkhold, there's this whole chapter about the Scarlet Witch and, like, what it means, and she's going to destroy the world and all this stuff. And then, again, just quickly in exposition with Wong in Doctor Strange film, he mentions how the Scarlet Witch is this all-powerful being, blah, blah, blah. You show her throne room with Chthon, but then you really don't learn any more of the mythos that comes with all of that and the Scarlet Witch and her kind of like the legacy that comes with this title that she's kind of embraced. And that I felt, story-wise, I missed and did not get in this film. Which is why she needs her own film, because I will only accept that if it's because you're saving it to explain it in her own solo film.
Sure. I can see that. It would have had a lot more impact than when she said, it won't be Wanda that comes, it will be the Scarlet Witch. That would have given it a little bit more. Like, you and me know that impact, but for someone who just knows the MCU or is new to this, having that in there would, I think, have given that a little bit more oomph,
Yeah, concur. All right, so we kind of gone through, like, the main characters of it, plot-wise, because I feel, minus kind of certain things with characters, what did you feel about the overall plot? Did you like it? Because it kind of starts, with a bang, and it does keep on going. I don't feel, for me, there was any kind of dip in pacing. I felt like it kept on going, but I've had people say it was too quick. I didn't, not too much happened, not enough happened. What were your thoughts?
So I did like the plot. I did like the story. I did not expect at all that Wanda was going to be the villain. I didn't know that.
I did not think it was going to be revealed so quickly. When that happened, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, and I also didn't realize that so much of the movie would be about her trying to get her kids. So I thought that was interesting. I liked the story and how it incorporated that with the idea of the multiverse. Like, obviously, that's how she's trying to get them. But I did feel like some of the pacing was a little weird. Not necessarily like bad, but some things that just like really kind of popped out to me. One was that like the Scarlet Witch, she gets America on that slab in like Wundagore or whatever, Wundagore Mountain. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, Wundagore Mountain. You were right.
And then it cuts to Strange in a different like universe with Christine for like 20 minutes. And I was like, so is America dead yet? Like, did Wanda kill her yet? Like, we're just like waiting to see. So I feel like that could have been like cut differently or maybe shown a little bit later. And then, like I mentioned before, like Wong is hanging there on on the cliff for like quite a while. So maybe he could have arrived there a little bit later and had like a little bit of a fight with her that Strange takes over. So yeah, I feel like some stuff did slow down just a little bit. Yeah, but I think that overall it was pretty good. I don't know. There's definitely moments that, it's like, that feels like a horror movie. And so there's some like moments that have jump scares that seem like very well planned out. The scene where they're running through like the underground tunnels, I feel like that was really cool and paced really well. So I did like the story and the way that it was done. I don't know. What about you?
The only thing I would say about that run through the tunnel is, so they're legit running for their lives. Scarlet Witch is crashing through all these like thick metal doors, like nothing can stop her. And then, what is it? The third door closes, and then they stop.
Stop?
Because they don't hear her. And I'm like, why are you just standing there? Like,
she's not a T-Rex. Like,
you should be still running. I don't know why you're stopping.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, it was there for that jump scare where she kind of like, slides into the side. So like, that itself is cool, but like logistically, it's like, why? Like, why did you just stop?
Yeah.
Like, go now.
The one thing that I did think was weird, I mean, maybe I just overthink it or whatever, but when they're at, what's the name of the place where all of the sorcerers live?
Kamatage.
When she's like flying above it and they're about to fight, I was like, why don't you just alter reality like you did at Westview and make them all think they're someone else? Yeah. And so maybe a tiny explanation of like, because when we see Wanda do that in WandaVision, it's almost like this involuntary thing that happened that she didn't control. So if it was explained a little bit about like, well, that's not something she can do super well yet, and that was like a fluke, then fine. But other than that, I was like, just make you don't need to fight everybody. Just make them think they're all someone else.
Yeah. So one of the things I always do is I always try to rationalize movies, especially when I really like them, because it's like I have to have a reason why it makes sense in my head, or then I just fall apart. So my reason for this is part of their training as these sorcerer apprentices is kind of like reinforcing their mind. So I would think
they did mention that a little bit, but she doesn't try to do it.
Yeah, but you know what she does? She finds that one, and she's like, "You're all I need."
Oh yeah.
She found him, and then she does a smirk on camera, like, "I'm so into Elizabeth." Also, when she's Scarlet Witch,
doesn't she just say run?
Yeah, but you're like,
that's so great.
But like the way she like even like appears behind him, she's like all floating. Her hair is like levitating, and she's like, "Run, yes."
Yeah.
That I was like completely into. Horror element. All right. I was always excited when they said that they were going to have this horror element to Doctor Strange. I thought it was very fitting, especially now that you're kind of going into this whole more magic, witchcraft, and whatnot. So I was excited about it. Personally, I'm not the biggest Sam Raimi fan. I'm not. It's just not my style.
I thought it was good. Like you said, I understand why they probably had Sam Raimi do it, because of the action and that kind of fun element to it.
All right. Well, the film was called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And a lot of the critics are saying, there's not much multiverse in a film with multiverse in the title. I think they probably go to like 2-3 different realities where they actually probably stay in said multiverse reality for a prolonged time. Yeah. But then, of course, you have the whole CGI sequence where they're like falling through multiple ones. So I see people's opinion on that and how that can make sense. But then I always challenge them because I was like, well, a movie can only be so long. How many multiverses can you actually go to, showcase, with it actually making sense in terms of story? But one of the things I always point to people, which makes me feel like, I'm like, I pay attention and I'm clever. It's called, yes, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but I think the runaway theme of this film is it is legitimately the madness of Scarlet Witch. Like, she is just driven mad by the Darkhold, and she's trying to get her kids, and she's going to utilize this girl, America Chavez, and suck her powers so she can just get to her kids. And that is where this layering of the multiverse is coming into play. And when I think if people see it from that perspective, it's legit the descent of madness for the Scarlet Witch, I think the film makes more sense. What did you think? Did you want more multiverse?
Not necessarily, but I think I agree with what you're saying because it's not like all these multiverses, the different universes are what's mad. They're all just like their own universe. So
They're just chilling.
Yeah, so I think that what you're saying is right. Like the madness is what's coming from Scarlet Witch. Yeah, they may have only gone to like a few places, but because we got the scene where they go through a bunch, and because we see, well, I didn't, but because we see America's moms like get sucked into a different universe and we don't know where they are, and we see the place between the multiverses, I feel like it was enough. It's like, it's a story. You can't do, like you said, you can't have like a 4-hour movie where they go to like a million of them. I know people are comparing it to like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I think is an amazing film, but they're just two different things, you know? And it's not like we're not going to see more multiverse as this goes forward.
Exactly. Sorry, spoiler alert, Secret Wars. This is where we're going. The multiverse is not done. Like all the mentions of multiverse and Loki, What If, and all these other shows. In Doctor Strange, it's still building. This was not like the climax of the multiverse. It just happened to be also in the name of the title. But you know what? At the end of the day, maybe Marvel should have changed the title maybe a little bit, you know? I think Scarlet Witch should have had a shout out in the title. I'm not gonna lie.
I wonder why they like, I mean, I don't wonder why they kept it so secret. Obviously, I know why, but like, she was, I read something where people were saying like, but you know, she's in it a lot, but this is definitely Steven's movie. I was like, to me, it's just as much Wanda's movie. Like, it's
just as much as Wanda's, and she is the emotional crux of it.
I remember like a long time, I know you're also kind of like a Disney nerd like me, but I remember a long time ago I was watching the making of like Beauty and the Beast, and there was this whole like to-do at the studio where they were like, but whose story is this? Is it the Beast's? Is it Belle's? Is it? And it's like, look at the title. It can be both of their stories. Like, it doesn't just need to be one thing or the other. So I feel like there was enough Wanda and her story and her arc that like it's definitely, in my opinion, both of their movies.
One of my favorite things about this, and of course it pertains to Wanda, is the fact that no one else in this film could stop the Scarlet Witch besides herself. I love this ending where America Chavez is like, you know what, I can't beat you, so I'm going to give you what you want. She punches a hole into the multiverse. She sends Wanda to one of the realities that had her kids that were already featured in the film. And, you know, this is where they run and they're scared of her because they just possessed and attacked their mom. But then the mom, you know, has that moment, you know, and it's such a good scene. It's such a good scene where you have like Wanda literally like broken down on her knees. Her eyes are closed. You know, see it in the trailer. And the other Wanda goes and puts her hand on her cheek. And it's just, her as a Scarlet Witch, I want that screen still blown up like on a wall. That is such a heart-wrenching image, but it's so good and powerful. And then she's just like, you know that they'll be loved. And, you know, and she opens her eyes. And it's just this, I think, a very poignant moment that Wanda is her own worst enemy. And also what kind of like a running thing in the films, because she has all these relationships with the other Avengers, you know? They kind of were setting up in Civil War and Endgame that, you know, her and Hawkeye, Clint Barton, had this kind of like brotherly sister relationship, you know, because obviously Pietro's dead, so he was kind of like looking over her. But then everyone seems to like forget that Wanda is suffering, that Wanda has gone through so much. And of course, you know, it's not like you can keep on hiring all these people to pop up for like one scene or whatnot. I get it, you know, they're expensive. But it does feel sometimes when you look back at it, it's like, why is there no emotional support system from her other Avenger teammates to help Wanda? Wanda's like lost her brother, lost her home, moved to a different country, had to kill Vision, lost Vision again. And he's going through all this stuff. Made a freaking hex. No one. Lifeline.
It's not like Strange had a difficult time finding her.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So.
Yeah.
But because of that, I think it's such a poignant scene that it is Wanda who has to save herself.
And I love that scene because of everything that you said. It's beautifully shot. It's beautifully acted. It's really great emotionally. But at its core, it's also very comic book still. It's these two different variant versions of the same character in different universes and bringing that into like the emotional climax of the movie. I thought it was really cool. Yeah, I loved it.
I need more Scarlet Witch. I'm going to go see it again. I essentially I haven't bought it. So I've seen it twice. I have basically from like the bank I have here in the UK, I got like 6 free movie tickets. And I'm like, let's just go again.
You need the like Hot Toys statue of the Scarlet Witch. Have you seen those?
I have not.
They're like beautifully made. They look exactly like the actors and the people. I'll send you a link. They're really
Please
cool
send me
looking.
the link because I will buy hers. I think we can both say I was a fan of the film. And I do think after watching it a second time, I'm much more a fan because obviously there's like so much to see and it's so like in your face. More than like half the movie, the pacing is go, go, go. I do think overall I did like the film. There's always going to be missed opportunities. There are always going to be things I wish were done differently because I do feel as a fan of the comic book, knowing stuff, wanting to see things as a fan, there are some things I wish could have been different. One of the things we already kind of touched upon was more magic battle. I would have loved to see her at one point go toe-to-toe for a much longer length and more cooler spells that we hadn't seen before between Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch. Also with Wong being Sorcerer Supreme, but I would have sacrificed Wong if I at least gotten it with Doctor Strange. Because I think it's after she escapes the mirror dimension and it's legit like she's like right there. Doctor Strange, America Chavez, and Wong. And he does his like dragon snake spell and she like fights it off, but then that was it. And then Wong throws his little energy orbs, and then that was it. I was like, I needed a battle. I wanted to see spells galore go in.
Yeah, I feel like when America's on that slab, a great way to do that would have been to have Strange and Wanda fighting a great battle, but then Wong is trying to battle those creatures so that he can free America. You know, like, you can do that, and that's a lot of magic. That's a lot of fighting. I think it would have been really kind of like a good way to heighten the excitement of that battle. I hesitate saying that just because I don't like America being this like save me kind of prop. But again, she's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, she was just introduced.
Yeah. and she fights Wanda and she does decently well. But I love that. Instead of defeating Wanda with like magic and force in a battle, that she's brought down by like, okay, fine, I surrender. I'm going to give you what you want. And that shows an intelligence behind America where she's able to know that, she didn't do that as a way of like giving up. She consciously, I feel, did that because she knew from her journey with Steven that when she sees these boys, they're not her boys. They're this other Wanda's boys. And that's going to be what, kind of brings her down. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I really like that. But I do agree. Don't we always want like a bigger battle and a huge, thing? But nothing's ever perfect. So obviously no movies. There are a few movies that are perfect, Romeo and Michelle. But anyway, but like nothing's perfect. So there's always going to be things that we would have wanted to see or whatever. And I feel like that's why we have the comics. We can always go back and read those and look at those and, hope and pray that we see the things we want in the next movie.
And that Kevin Feige listens to this podcast and he's like, they're right.
No, but then he might never want to hire me to write a Marvel comic again.
No, he will. He's like, this guy knows his shit. I need him on everything.
I'll write whatever you want, Kevin.
So similar to kind of like a lack of the magic battle, another thing I would have liked to see drawn out a little bit more, because also it hasn't really been fully explored. You heard the Ancient One mention the astral dimension in the first Doctor Strange. And then you saw Doctor Strange, push out the astral projection of Peter Parker in No Way Home. But you haven't really explored the astral... I always want to call it the astral plane, because that's what it's called in the comic books, in the cartoons. But they call it the astral dimension. I don't know why. So if I say astral plane, I mean the same thing.
Yeah.
We have Professor X. He's a freaking telepath. He can access the astral plane. I was really hoping that would have been so much longer or more dynamic than what we got. He stops her. He goes into her mind. I like the fact that you see the Scarlet Witch struggling, piercing my mind. But then you get to this just CGI white screen. Earth 813, Wanda's stuck in the rubble. There's a WandaVision TV. Professor X tries to go help her. Red mist starts to follow him. He's like, oh, something's coming. Scarlet Witch breaks his neck. That was it. The astral dimension in the comic books, people, your mind's the limit. This is why only powerful psychics can go in it. And it's legit. Anything can happen. If you look in the comic books, even in the cartoons, these are it's the only limit is your mind. So your creativity, how you fight, it's can be so grand. I would have loved to see a more tit for tat with the Scarlet Witch and Professor X in this moment.
I agree with you. I feel like again, I think the issue was that they're like, well, but we can't spend too much time with this and Professor X because this is a Doctor Strange movie and but like, do you think anybody would have cared?
No, come on.
They would have been like,
this is the best thing I've seen in my life.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like at the end of WandaVision, don't we see that the way she's doing this magic is because like we see her outside drinking coffee, but then we go inside and she's like astral projecting, trying to do this magic. So I feel like they established that there, and that we could have done a little bit more with it in this. Like we mentioned before, like maybe he sees the two different versions of Wanda and he tries to help them both, has to make a decision, doesn't know what to do. That would have been really cool. But yeah, I don't know. I did notice the WandaVision TV. I thought that was a cool
It was a
touch.
nice nod.
Yeah. And because it brought back to me the memory of when she was a little girl under that rubble. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what that emulated, right? Like that was a pivotal moment in her life. And so it's interesting to see that that's the moment they chose to visually represent her being lost. And yeah. So yeah, I mean, we can just hope that we'll get a lot more of the astral plane.
We better, because that's also one of the things that they completely lacked in the 20th Century Fox X-Men films. Like, you never saw it. Like, X-Men 3, when Jean and her Dark Phoenix persona and Professor X are going, you know, they are legit just staring at each other. But the version that they cut out, like in the cinema, you just have them staring at each other and there's dramatic music in the background. But there's a version, I think it was on the DVD, where you actually hear kind of like whispers and voices of them kind of like talking to each other. And, you know, he's trying to reach out to her and she's like, you've always tried to contain me. That's so much better than just this like intense stare.
What, like, wouldn't that be really cool visually to like cut between scenes of, say, Jean and Professor X like battling each other with images in the astral plane of them just standing there and talking to each other. Like this battle's happening in their mind as well, but with words and with their brains while they're fighting each other physically or you know, with their powers. That'd be so
okay,
cool.
So you know the thing that reminds me of? It's in the comic book, it's the Phoenix 5 storyline.
Oh, yeah. Where, like, the five of them have a piece of the Phoenix and...
Yes. Yeah. So, essentially, 5 people have the Phoenix Force, but just... We'll cut to the chase for you listeners. So, Cyclops and the White Queen have a portion of the Phoenix Force within themselves. It's Avengers versus X-Men. So what's happening is, essentially, all the Avengers are wanting, of course, stop the Phoenix because she's going to destroy the world. So, they're fighting Cyclops and the White Queen. But what happens when you open the issue, it just starts off with Cyclops and the White Queen in their Phoenix-like costumes having like a lush dinner, and they're just conversing, and they're just talking about how the Avengers and the X-Men are pissing them off. And then it just goes on for a few panels like this. And then I think at one point, like, the White Queen gets a bloody nose, and she just mentions, she's like, this battle is really starting to annoy the fuck out of me. And then you pass the next page, and all the while, what's happening is, the Cyclops and the White Queen are having this lush dinner in their minds because they're so powerful and they're on the astral plane and do whatever the fuck they want. But simultaneously, what they're doing is they're legit fighting the X-Men and Avengers at the same time and are able to just space out enough to like have this moment. But it's all happening at the same time, and I was like, that was so well done.
Yeah, it's great. It's a nice like surprise.
Yeah, I would love to see that visually.
It'd be so cool. Maybe we will. Who knows?
Was there anything else that you felt like you would have kind of liked to see? Any other missed opportunities you felt that maybe they touched upon, could have like widened a bit?
You know, I don't know. I would have loved one line maybe establishing America as like queer.
Yeah, she had her pride badge or her pride pin.
I feel like there might be a hesitation because she's a child and they're like, oh, well, we can't do that. People will be really mad. But again, I would think that when they do something more with her, that would be established. But I think we've covered it because I just would have wanted to see a little bit more like magic battle. And yeah, I don't think I would have wanted to have them have too many more like multiverses seen in there. I think that was enough for the story. And like we mentioned before, just a little bit of Wanda and her like descent into this villainy so that we would, I think, have it mean more to us as a viewer. But yeah, other than that, no, I think it was pretty good. I liked it. And it's always weird when you go into a movie like this because I personally don't want to go see a movie opening night because I waited like 3 or 4 days without fail. There was like 6 people in the theater. Of course, one of them was talking loud. One of them was on their phone. There could be like one person there and that would happen. So it bothers me. My favorite thing used to be going to the movies. But I think when we go into a movie like this, we always go in with expectations and with likely already hearing a lot of reviews. Like, oh, this movie was amazing. This movie sucked. I don't, so I think we just don't know what to think. And when I go in, I just try to like wipe all that and be like, well, what do I think? And I liked it.
I liked it. I think overall, I find it a very entertaining film. I think most people were kind of well versed in Infinity War, and I think it was a much more structured. It wasn't necessarily much more structured, but because it's I'm collecting these stones, it was easy to follow that linear storyline and this overarching narrative. Whereas I feel for most people in Secret Wars and Multiverses, they're not so well versed. Even in these weren't really kind of storylines that happened in any of the popular 90s cartoons from our childhood. So unless you read the comic books, you're like, what the hell is going on? So I think it's a little bit harder for people to see how it all connects. And I think at the end, when you come to the end of Phase 4 or Phase 5, people are going to be like, I get it.
Yeah.
I see it now.
I see that. I will say that what will make me watch it again is Wanda and America.
No, I would. Maybe Wanda sells it. Like, I legit, like, she only gets better. Like, watching the first time, I was just in awe of Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch. And then the second time, you see that conflict. Because I kind of went in wanting to understand, like, why don't you see the conflict more? Why don't they explicitly show it?
Yeah.
But even though they don't, she shows it. She shows it, and if you go there knowing that she's not evil because she's just decided I want to go kill people, and it's the Darkhold has corrupted her, I think it's a much easier pill to swallow.
Yeah, absolutely.
You had to go see it again. Go support!
I will.
Terry, thank you so much for being a guest on the Geeky Gentleman once again. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Of course, thank you. Anytime.
No worries. And I will chat to you later.
Bye.
Thank you again.